How can we really know the benefits and risks of COVID-19 vaccines? Let's look at just facts. Buried 23 pages into the FDA's approval summary for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine is data that cuts to the core of the vaccination debate, presented in a place and manner that has been completely overlooked until now. The data reveals the number of deaths among people who received the COVID-19 vaccine and people who received a placebo in Pfizer's largest clinical trial. Those figures provide the only reliable measure of the vaccine's greatest benefits and risks because they are unambiguous, enumerate the worst possible outcome, and control for every conflating factor due to the design of the study. In approving Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for adults and older children, the FDA mainly relied on a large randomized controlled trial, or RCT. These are studies in which people are randomly assigned to receive or not receive a certain treatment. When properly conducted, RCTs are the gold standard for clinical research because they provide a rigorous tool to examine cause and effect, which is not possible with any other study design. Thus, the medical textbook Rutherford's Vascular Surgery calls them the pinnacle in clinical design. The defining feature of RCTs is that they control for every factor but the medical treatment that is studied. This is a natural outcome of randomly giving the treatment to some people and not to others. Combined with the use of a placebo so that people don't alter their mindsets or behaviors as a result of knowing they received the treatment, quality RCTs ensure that any major differences between the groups who received and did not receive the treatment are due to the treatment and not some other variable. That level of certainty cannot be determined by observing people in the wild, where non-random factors determine who receives and does not receive a treatment. For example, comparing the death rates of people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated against COVID-19 cannot prove whether the vaccines are more helpful than harmful because the odds of death are impacted by variables like age, comorbidities, and risky behaviors. Researchers commonly use statistical techniques to control for such variables, but these methods cannot rule out the possibility that other factors are at play. Also, the techniques used in these analyses are prone to pitfalls. Underscoring the reality that observational studies cannot match the reliability of RCTs, a paper in the European Heart Journal compares RCT and non-RCT studies on drugs to prevent heart failure and finds that it is not possible to make reliable therapeutic inferences from observational associations. The Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, which is being marketed under the name Comirnaty, is the only COVID-19 vaccine that is actually approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and not merely authorized for emergency use. The primary basis for that approval was an RCT that enrolled more than 40,000 subjects. Per the FDA, these participants were randomized 1-to-1 to receive 2 doses of either Comirnaty or placebo 3 weeks apart. After monitoring the subjects for up to 6 months beyond their second dose of either vaccine or placebo, the study found there were a total of 38 deaths, 21 in the Comirnaty group and 17 in the placebo group. That crucial statement, which was almost completely overlooked until now, wasn't disclosed until the 23rd page of the FDA's vaccine approval summary. Furthermore, it appears in a paragraph which claims none of the deaths were considered related to vaccination. In reality, only the RCT can objectively determine how many deaths were related to vaccination. This is because there are untold ways this may occur beyond the potential direct effects, like cardiac events, embolisms, fevers, and seizures. For example, many fatal car accidents are triggered by fatigue, and the RCT found that 70.1% of subjects under the age of 55 reported fatigue after receiving the vaccine. This is why the only way to accurately measure the net effects of all risks and benefits is via a randomized, controlled trial. Now, the mortality figures from Pfizer's RCT suggest that the vaccine increased the risk of death by 24%. However, the death rate in both groups is so small, or about 0.1%, that the difference between them is statistically insignificant. Put precisely, the RCT found that the vaccine may decrease the risk of death by as much as 34%, or increase the risk of death by as much as 136%. Because the vast majority of people had a very low risk of death during the average enrollment time of the trial, these results indicate that the vaccine could prevent up to 1 death or cause up to 5 deaths per year among every 1,000 people. This range has a statistical certainty of 95%, meaning there is a 5% chance the actual rate is outside of this range due to mathematical chance. For added perspective, if 10 more deaths occurred among the people who received the vaccine, the study would show that the vaccine increased the risk of death. Conversely, if 20 more deaths occurred among people who received the placebo, the study would show that the vaccine reduced the risk of death. Some may argue that the study was underpowered, a medical term for clinical trials that don't enroll enough participants to detect an effect. However, Pfizer's trial enrolled more than 40,000 people, and 10 more deaths in the vaccine group, or 0.05% of the vaccinees, would have yielded a statistically significant result. Any argument that dismisses the death data as the result of an underpowered study raises the question of why Pfizer would design an RCT that is incapable of detecting the primary objective of a vaccine, saving lives. It also raises the question of why the FDA would approve a vaccine based on a study that is underpowered in this manner. In short, the main RCT for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine found no statistically significant effect on the risk of death. And if there is an effect, the results show it is likely minimal. All studies have their limitations, and a major one of Pfizer's RCT is that none of the participants were enrolled for more than 6 months after their second dose of the vaccine. In fact, Pfizer began removing people from the RCT as soon as they became eligible to receive the vaccine under local recommendations. That decision was made in defiance of guidance issued by a global association of 24 healthcare regulatory agencies. In a statement released in November 2020, this international coalition of government agencies explained why longer-term RCTs are necessary for COVID-19 vaccines. Among other important points, they emphasized that RCTs provide robust and convincing evidence and should be conducted for as long as feasible and at least 1 year or more to determine whether protection against COVID-19 disease wanes over time. Pfizer and other vaccine manufacturers directly flouted that guidance. As a result, a medical journal reported in August 2021 that placebo-controlled follow-up, originally planned for 2 years in many trials, was eliminated after a few months. Decisions to end the RCTs also hindered their ability to detect any effects of herd immunity as the broader society became vaccinated. Medical ethics required that RCTs be barred or ended if they would undoubtedly harm people. Thus, some may argue that the RCTs should have been shortened based on their findings that the vaccines have large and statistically significant effects on reducing the risk of severe COVID-19. However, those results don't account for any side effects of the vaccine or long-term complications of COVID-19, and they don't account for whether protection against COVID-19 disease wanes over time. Decisions to hastily end the RCTs are proving to be ill-advised, given that a wide range of studies is finding that the immunity conferred by the current COVID-19 vaccines weakens over time. This includes, but is not limited to, a study recently released by Moderna, a study conducted by the CDC, a study conducted for the Department of Defense, new studies published in working papers that have not yet undergone peer review, and a massive Pfizer-funded study published by The Lancet. Since all of those are observational studies, they don't have the surety of RCTs and are therefore tentative. That is precisely why Dr. Doran Fink, Deputy Director of the FDA's Division of Vaccines and Related Products Applications, warned at an FDA committee meeting in October 2020. Once a decision is made to unblind an ongoing placebo-controlled trial, that decision cannot be walked back. and that controlled follow-up is lost forever. The U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration has decided not to enforce a federal regulation that requires employers to record worker side effects from COVID-19 vaccination. In the words of the agency, this is because it does not wish to have any appearance of discouraging workers from receiving COVID-19 vaccination and also does not wish to disincentivize employers' vaccination efforts. Compare that close your eyes approach to the candor of the United Kingdom's Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, which explains that all vaccines and medicines have some side effects, and these side effects need to be continuously balanced against the expected benefits in preventing illness. Randomized controlled trials are the only reliable way to accurately measure those risks and benefits. So, let's summarize the life or death facts about the main RCT used to approve the Pfizer vaccine. Buried 23 pages into its approval summary for the vaccine, the FDA reports that 38 people died in the main RCT, including 17 who received the placebo and 21 who received the vaccine. With 95% statistical certainty, this data shows that the vaccine could prevent up to 1 death or cause up to 5 deaths per year among every 1,000 people. Those results are subject to limitations that could have been lessened if Pfizer and other vaccine manufacturers had not ejected participants from their RCTs after a maximum of 6 months. Yet the manufacturers did this in defiance of government healthcare regulatory agencies who recommended that subjects be enrolled for at least 1 year. These are unvarnished life or death facts that Pfizer and the FDA have shrouded and that no major media outlets have reported. I'm Amanda Reed Sheik, here with Just Facts. For thorough documentation of every fact in this video and more facts about this issue, read the article "Main Study Used by FDA to Approve COVID-19 Vaccine Found No Significant Effect on the Risk of Death" at justfactsdaily.com.